Hey, and welcome to Week 3 Boom Bust Fantasy Football Show brought to you by the Fantasy Football Advice Network. We're going to break down some booms and busts at each position for this week's matchup. Now, what is a boom and what is a bust? It's whether those players exceed or fall short of their general expectations for the week based off of most websites' weekly rankings. All right, Kyle, what do you say we get it rolling here?
Dude, let's get it going. We're going to start with a bust. We got to start out with a negative. Mr. Breece Hall. And it's for two reasons. One reason, Justin Fields gets a concussion, probably not going to play this week, right?
Yeah.
Tampa Bay's run defense did pretty well, aside from like a lucky breakaway touchdown from Chubb. Played pretty well against the run. So between those two things, I am not a big fan of Breece Hall this week. I think he's going to struggle a little bit against the Bucs.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if that was a Chubb problem or if that was a Bucs run defense. I do lean toward it being the Bucs defense is actually pretty solid against the run there. Breece Hall has not actually been producing very good. And then you saw what he did, like you said, when Justin Fields got hurt. It wasn't pretty. Andy's losing work to Braylon Allen a little bit. I'm with you on this. This does not bode well for Breece Hall this week.
I could see, without Justin Fields, I could see the Jets falling behind Baker and the Bucs and kind of getting away from that run a little bit this week as well. So,
yep,
another reason, be careful with Breece Hall.
Yep, agreed. Temper expectations.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's move on to a boom.
Oh, some good news, finally.
Yeah. I'm going to hit you with Harold Fannin Jr., and he's playing against Green Bay.
Okay.
He is essentially the tight end one on that field now.
That's got to be hard for you to say, Kyle.
I love David Njoku, but we're seeing a change in the guard, I think, and I think it's because they want to trade Njoku and use this young kid there because, I mean, they get good value for Njoku.
100%.
But this guy's so legit. Like, if you just watch him play, it's very clear that this kid is very, very talented. And, you know, why not trade Njoku and get something out of him, right?
100%.
I was also looking at
to throw you off there.
Well, no, I was also looking at Green Bay last week. Zach Ertz was the number 2 tight end in fantasy last week, playing against Green Bay. So not only is Harold Fannin a beast, but he's playing against a team that's susceptible to tight ends. And to me, that's just a recipe for success.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add to that. We've said everything there is to say. I think you're right. I think the Fannin's production has been consistent, which is surprising, considering they do have Njoku. And I think Njoku definitely is a good trade candidate here.
Well, because we initially, talking about Fannin, I had originally brought up that it's kind of Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely situation.
Yeah.
I've changed my mind on that. Likely was very, very sporadic, and it wasn't a consistent. I think Harold Fannin's going to be much more consistent. So I think it's going to be a little bit different of a situation than we thought starting out.
Yep, I agree. Very surprising for me, but
yeah. Okay, right. So let's move on. Let's do another bust. And let's talk about Isiah Pacheco. Now, his workload is not great because they're getting Kareem Hunt very, very involved. This run game is just not very good, period. All right?
This offense isn't very good right now.
The offense is not very good, but especially the run game. And then you factor in that they're playing the Giants this week. The Giants' run defense is surprisingly good. Davante had a couple of really good runs against them this last weekend, but for the most part, they held our running game in check, our Dallas running game in check. They're very stout against the run. So Isiah Pacheco, for me, is not trending the right direction this season. I think, before I feel comfortable starting Isiah Pacheco, we're going to need to see, the running the ball trend the other direction on this team.
Yeah, I mean, I know everyone's going to argue that Javonte Williams did have a good game against them. I agree that it was kind of his maybe one or two chunk plays. You know, he had that one where he broke through and scored. If not for that, then kind of a mediocre day, I guess. In a PPR, he did have 6 receptions. And then when you look at that, they're going to be throwing the ball to Kareem Hunt, not Isiah Pacheco. So if you're throwing the ball to your running back there, again, I think Kareem Hunt gets more of those targets than Pacheco. And then that's a pretty even split running the ball there. And neither has looked great so far. But that passing game isn't doing great, so it's not opening up the running game. They're not complementing each other. And Isiah Pacheco got a lot of goal line carries last year, or in his career, get these scores. They're not getting to the goal line a lot right now, so they're not touchdowns. These running backs aren't, so it's not a great situation.
Yeah, they'll benefit greatly from Worthy getting healthy and then Rice finishing his suspension up for sure.
100%.
Okay, let's jump over to the boom side. Let's talk about Jaylen Warren. All right, Jaylen Warren is the clear number one running back in this backfield.
Yes,
which is not what anybody thought coming into the year. Everybody was all over Caleb Johnson. Jaylen Warren's the number one guy, and he's getting, he's had 4 receptions last week, which is pretty good, right?
Yep.
And then they're playing New England this week, whose defense has been very, very soft against the run and the pass, and a little healthy foreshadowing there. But Jaylen Warren's the man. He's getting almost all the touches against a soft defense. Give me that.
Yeah, I'm just going to say Jaylen Warren, this isn't a surprise for me that he's the clear lead back. I thought that was going to be it from the get-go. More surprisingly, it's more surprising that Kenneth Gainwell has a bigger role than Caleb Johnson. That's more of the surprise to me. I thought Caleb Johnson would have, but this isn't about him. This is about Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren has proven that he's productive. He looked better than Najee when Najee was there. I mean, we talked about that all last year. Just give Jaylen Warren the ball instead of Najee, and you'll have much better production. And then when he had the starting role this year, felt good about it. When they went and got Caleb Johnson, I wasn't really worried about it. He's producing because he catches the ball so well. He's explosive. He's a good running back. And so, and I think it continues for a while. I don't think he gets overtaken this season either. Anyways, I know this is about this week. I love Jaylen Warren. I like your call here.
And I'm going to go ahead and hit you with that payoff
footage. Oh, no. Okay.
Do what?
I said that beautiful bean footage? Oh, no.
Well, maybe. No, if you play cards right, maybe. No, I'm going to pay off that foreshadowing, and we're going to put DK Metcalf as a boom as well. This offense is throwing the ball a little bit more than I think people expected.
Yes.
It's an Arthur Smith offense, but they also, I think we all forgot, it's also Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to throw the ball. And so, DK Metcalf has already been better than I thought he would be with Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith offense. But again, like I was talking about a minute ago, New England, this defense is horrible. They might be rivaling Cincinnati for worst defense in the league this year. And I think that they take advantage of that this weekend to really get this offense cranking.
Yeah, I think they've got to get him going at some point. I mean, he's consistent so far, right? So you can get about 10 points out of him, but I think he far exceeds that this coming week. Would you dare to say that he maybe even scores twice this week against New England?
I think he could, yes.
Yeah.
I think he will. I think he will, yes.
No, man. All righty. What's your next one?
All right, we're going to hit you with a bust.
All right.
People aren't going to like this because he's coming off a pretty good week, and that's Davante Adams. Yeah, he's coming out. He had a really good week. He had a kind of a down week 1.
Yep.
Back to have a really, really good week 2. Unfortunately, now he's got to go to Philly and play against them. And, I mean, Philly just shut down, Dallas, aside from CeeDee Lamb, because he's CeeDee Lamb, but, like, Pickens and stuff, didn't do great in the passing game against Philly. Yep. And then last week, we just talked about the Kansas City crap show, against Philly and that. And they've got Patrick Mahomes playing QB, and he couldn't complete passes. So I'm worried about this Philly defense for Davante Adams as the wide receiver too. So I think unless you just don't have options, I'm probably trying to bench him this week.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that Dallas game. You called it with Pickens not having a good week that week at Philly, and I think that CeeDee Lamb really benefited from Jalen Carter getting thrown out and Dak Prescott not having a lot of pressure in his face. I think that really helped them, and so man, I don't feel good about a number 2 wide receiver because let's face it, Davante Adams is the number 2 wide receiver there, which is strange to say about Adams, right? But I don't feel good about that going into Philly. And I think it's going to be like that all season. I think we can almost always put these wide receivers playing at Philly. I'll probably put them on this bus list pretty often because it's just not a great situation.
Philly and Denver are going to be on the bus list a lot for receivers.
Pretty often. Yep, I agree.
All right, let's hit you with the last bust first.
All right.
That's going to be Tee Higgins.
Not surprised.
Yeah. If anybody watching this saw Weekly Kickoff, we talked about the Joe Burrow injury a bit and how we think, Jamar Chase Brown probably aren't affected that much. Tee Higgins could take a hit as the number 2 receiver. So that plus Minnesota has got a pretty decent defense. So I think he would have struggled a little bit regardless of Joe Burrow's injury. So you put those two things together, Tee Higgins is a tough start this week.
I tend to agree with that. That injury to Burrow hurts Tee Higgins' value. I don't think that Jamar Chase takes that big of a hit. In fact, it might actually – you get a quarterback like that, they're going to lean on that number 1 target, I think a lot. And I think Chase Brown gets a lot of work to dump off passes. So I think this does hurt Tee Higgins. And then going into Minnesota, now that might change over time as he builds a little bit more rapport with the QB here. But right now, I'm just not liking it as their first full game coming out there at Minnesota.
Yep, 100%. And then on the other side of that same game,
yep,
got Jordan Mason as my last boom at running back for Minnesota.
Yeah.
The obvious part of this is Aaron Jones just got put on IR for at least the next 4 weeks, right?
Yep.
The main thing about this matchup is exactly what we just talked about. Joe Burrow's being out, they're not going to be able to put up points the same way necessarily. It's entirely possible that Minnesota, even though, they've got a backup QB coming in too, but I think this one's an upgrade instead of a downgrade like Cincinnati's. I think they could get a lead on Cincinnati and really lean on this run game. And I think Jordan Mason could see a whole lot of work against a really bad defense.
Yeah, I think this is interesting, Minnesota's offense, because they had multiple injuries here, and I feel like they're about to get multiple upgrades to their offense. I feel like Carson Wentz is probably an upgrade at quarterback, and I feel like Jordan Mason's an upgrade at running back. So I feel like this offense is probably going to take a step forward because of these injuries and the backups coming in their situation. Yeah. So I actually like the change at quarterback for Mason here too. I think it's going to open up that offense a little bit. And the Aaron Jones going on IR is a recipe for success here.
Yeah, 100%. And I think while Aaron Jones is on IR, I think Jordan Mason takes his starting job and, no pun intended, runs with it for the rest of the year.
I see what you did there. Also, I have to ask, but what about Cam Akers?
What about Cam Akers?
All right, guys. That's going to do it for us this week. Good luck in your matchups. Get those booms in your lineup.
Yes, sir. Good luck.